This month just flew by. It's the shortest of the year, and it really was the shortest of the year. I have read not a lot of things, uh, but yeah, they're here. I've read mostly mangas. I did read a graphic novel, and I did finish a novel that I was reading in January, but that is basically it. So, without further ado, we will get into this and wrap up the month of February of 2023. Hello, beautiful bookworms! My name is Katarina, and welcome to my channel. And today, as I stated, I'm going to be doing my wrap up of February. So, firstly and foremost, I will start with the ebook that I actually finished. I've been reading this since the beginning of the year, so like January, and I am so happy to tell you that I did finish it and I did love it. And that is Famulus Falsus by Brooklyn Dean. I hope that I'm pronouncing this correctly. My Latin sometimes gets away from me. But as you probably know, I have a review for Deification, the first in the Anti-Gospel series, and I will leave a link up above. I am absolutely loving the entirety of this series. I loved the first one, the second one, the third, and now the fourth just kind of broke me, and I enjoy this experience so much. I don't really know how to describe this. This is kind of like post-apocalyptic universe, but in a way it blends horror with questions regarding religion and free will and what we are doing here. And it's a little bit of a kind of insight on the flawless of humanity and who we are, what we are, and what we're doing here. Do we have a purpose? Do we not? So it's kind of very exploratory in a way, but it does have different genres related to it. Nevertheless, I think it could be very intriguing to some of you guys. I think that if you like a little bit of horror, that it's not to the extreme, but that adds to all of the sense of post-apocalyptic world. And if you do like a discussion regarding religion and theology, this might be the one for you. Also, it does have incredible characters. I have characters that I wish to protect that are my actual babies, and Brooklyn is kind of like, well, nobody's safe, and I am afraid for the next book, but I want it so much. I want to read it, I want to love it, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to love all of the books of this series, and pretty much all of the books that I read from this author, because she is incredible. The way that she writes is like no other. Like, her expressions, her style, it's beautiful, so I do recommend, if you can, to pick this up. Then, getting the graphic novel that I read out of the way, I read Homesick Pilots, Volume 1, Teenage Hunts. And this is by Dan Waters, Casper Wingyard, and apparently two more people that I don't see here. Okay, with lettering by Aditya Bidikar and designer by Tom Mueller. I thought I was going to love this. The premise of this, in the back, states that, and actually, I'm going to give you my own synopsis. This is a graphic novel about these teenagers. They are apparently problematic teenagers. They have some problematic relationships with family or friends or etc. And they are in a punk band. And one day there's a discussion, and one of their friends, this main girl here in the front, she goes and enters this supposedly haunted house because she's like checking it out if it would be cool to have a gig there, and it will be one of the best places and whatever. And she feels connected to the house because the house is dark, the house is lost, and she also feels like that, like lost all of the time. She does have dark story in her past, which is not very explored here, maybe in next volumes, but she feels connected to the house, and so the house kind of recruits her to be an extremely powerful part of her, to actually go and get the ghosts that have went away from the house, like those that attached themselves to other people that went there, and the house needs them back because she's kind of broken without it. This sounds incredibly amazing, right? And I was like, wow, the coloring is beautiful, the art style is really great, I really want to know more about these characters. And then, this is going to be sort of a spoiler, for the genre that this is, not exactly for the story about it, but then this story turns about mechas. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's kind of it, but without the metaphors and morality and situations that make Evangelion as great as it is. It just is. And I mean, I didn't detest it, but I'm not going to continue with this. Life is too short to read things that I don't want to read. And this is one of them because I have a problem with mechas. I need specific things like politics, wars, or interesting characters, or something like that to actually get into a story that has mechas. This was not the one for me. It might be for you. I won't criticize since the problem is in me. But yeah, I didn't like it. Then I've read the second volume of PTSD Radio by Masahaki Nakayama and absolutely love it. I have a review for the first one, which I'll leave a link up above. And if you've seen that review, you know that I consider it one of my favorite horror mangas. And this opinion is maintained when I read PTSD Radio Volume 2. I cannot wait for the rest of the volumes of this series. I just want to binge read all of it and make a bunch of crazy theories. But if you love horror, and if you don't have a lot of triggers with like spirits or gore or deformities or creepy hair things, then this might be for you. We went a little bit more into the past and why these things are happening and why this deity and this situation is that it is how it is in this place, and I'm very wow. I just love it. I love it so much. Then I read Oshi No Ko, by Aka Akasaka and Mengo Yokoyari, and I never expected that a manga that looked like this, and that stated it was about a gynecologist and, well, no, an OB-GYN and an idol of 16 years old could be so interesting. This is not a contemporary. I have a review for this. I will link it up above. I will not tell you anything of the story because it's full of twists and turns that will make it even more crazy and make you want to read even more if you get into it. But the hype is real for this one and I am into it. And no, it's not a creepy romance about those people with an immensely age gap. It's a murder mystery. That's all that I have to fucking say about this. It's excellent. I really enjoy it. I plan to read Volume 2 when it gets into my hands as ASAP. And finally, the last manga that I've read in February, and the last thing that I read in February is Beyond the Promised Neverland by Kai Shirai and Posuke Nemisu. And if you know anything about this channel, you know that I've read The Promised Neverland for a while now. I've made a review of the entirety of the series as a non-spoiler review, also linked up above. And this, I don't recommend to read this if you haven't read the entirety of the Promised Neverland series, because even though most of the stories that are in here have nothing to do with the Promised Neverland and are incredibly fun and also kind of have that mix that the Promised Neverland also has of being really happy but at the same time really nostalgic and really sad, they don't have anything to do with it. But the last story in here, it's an epilogue to The Promised Neverland. It's the thing that you wanted to see that you haven't seen. And because of that, it spoils the entirety of the ending of The Promised Neverland series. So, if you like this series, go read and finish the series and then pick up Beyond the Promised Neverland because it's worth it. I really enjoyed it. The art style is incredible. The stories are beautiful. There's one story in here that is my particular favorite that has to do with this photographer that photographs spirits. So it's really great. I do recommend if you like Promised Neverland. Even if you don't like it, then maybe just pick it up and read the other stories, and don't read the last one. I don't know. You do what you want. I'm not the police. So yeah, guys, that's going to be all for this wrap-up. I know, short wrap-ups and short books, but life is what it is. I am going to be trying in March to actually read bigger books. We will see where this is going since I'm in the last year of my PhD thesis and reading normally is articles and scientific papers and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be all for today. If you like it, leave a like or subscribe, and tell me down below if you've read any of these, if you have them, if you consider on reading any of these. That's going to be all for today, and happy readings to you all. Bye!